Hi, welcome back to An Enthusiastic Reader. My name is Sonia. I have been away for a couple of weeks and I wanted to say hello, chat with you a little bit about what I've been doing, what I've been reading, what I am reading, and do some podcast recommendations. What else? I think that's about it. And then talk a little bit about the book pricing videos that I've seen recently on BookTube. So let's get started. Hello! My husband and I went on a 3,800 mile, 7-day road trip, and we had so much fun. We had a lot of time just to sit, kind of empty our brains out onto the road, listen to podcasts, listen to old, bad music, bad, good music. We had fun and see family and see Niagara Falls, see a bunch of sunrises. We had a blast, and I will insert a little bit of video here so you can see what we saw quickly.
Take the next exit 21 on the right onto Route 384 and then immediately keep right.
One of the highlights of the trip was going to the art museum in Syracuse, New York, and we saw an exhibit by Yoko Ono, which was kind of a little bit of a retrospective, probably not exactly, but there was some new work that she's been curating about the Me Too movement, sexual assault, and there was also some avant-garde movie that she made in the 1960s before she met John Lennon. And another really fun interactive part of her exhibit was this room where people could go in and paint on the walls in this beautiful blue color. And so I wanted to show you a little bit of some of the graffiti art that was in there. We put these booties on our feet and walked in, and you could paint or not. We chose not to paint, but it was just fun to see what kind of art came out of this, inspiration. Most of it was really hopeful and positive, which was kind of nice. Some of her exhibits were quite harrowing and sad, and so she's a very complicated and complex artist, and it was great to see her exhibit, which we would have never seen if we hadn't gone. So we also went to the Erie Canal Museum. We ate a lot of good Syracusean food, and we tried to navigate the streets, and it wasn't easy because it's complicated in the East compared to the grid system of boring suburban Denver. So that was a challenge, and we saw a bunch of sunrises. We drove over a bunch of bridges, and all in all, it was a really fun trip. All right, enough of that. Let's get into what I have recently read and finished. And I participated in a group read of Light in August by William Faulkner that was being hosted by Brian of Bookish and Alan of Big Hard Books and Classics. Big Hard Books and Classics. I looked forward to this every week in August. On Saturdays, Brian would do kind of a recap of the chunk of the book that we had read the week before, and then give his analysis and what he thought was going on. And then all the people who were participating would chime in, either with videos of their own or and a very kind of robust comment section discussion, which was great. And there were so many different ways to look at the way that this was written and how you as a reader chose to perceive it or to create like a new text with your own reaction to the book. And what was really striking to me besides the experience of, I really was very engaged with the reading of this book. I annotated the actual text, wrote marginalia, underlined key concepts, and then really was paying attention to what had happened in the discussions that was kind of informing my next reading of the next section. So it was almost like being back in school, which I really kind of miss, and that was fun. It was a lot of fun. I've said a lot of fun like 10 times already today, so sorry about that. But what struck me and my own reaction to this book is that the women in the book, both the black and white women, were severely devalued, if not totally ignored, not really given any access into their interior lives in any way. And, you know, you could look at it that Faulkner was using this. Was he using it to make a point? Does he care what the female characters might be thinking, feeling, doing, breathing? It didn't feel like maybe he wanted to engage with them, and he tried to interpret what they might have been thinking and feeling and doing through male characters, including one who hadn't been in the book at all until almost the end, and then you get him telling a very key character's story and psychological progress from her whole life while she was dealing with her own feelings about her daughter having a baby out of wedlock who happened to be a mixed race child, and protecting that baby from her kind of wicked husband. And this character Stevens gets to tell the whole story, which he would have had no access to her interior thoughts and feelings. So why did Faulkner choose to do this? It's kind of up for debate. But it does create an effect, and this is a work of art, and so that elision of all female perspective, aside from what the male decides was going on in the female's mind, is part of the art. There's just no doubt about it. It's a part of the effect, and I'm not condemning it. I just think it should be noted, though. And so, I mean, that's really all I will say about the novel. I loved reading it. I loved the experience, and I feel like it gave something to me that I didn't have before I started. Another book I read and finished, I got a galley copy of this book from NetGalley. It's called How We Fight for Our Lives by Saeed Jones. Jones is a writer, and he went to, I think, Iowa. He went to one of the major writing workshops. This is basically his memoir from adolescence to post-grad, where he grapples with his coming out, it's coming of age, it's being rejected by his grandmother, it's seeking out humiliating sexual encounters with people, and, you know, written in exquisite detail, very heartfelt, pretty conventional memoir, I feel. It kind of goes right along the lines of other coming out memoirs that I've read before. Very straightforward, and yeah, I really enjoyed this book. If you're interested in queer novel or queer memoir and African American memoir, then you should look out for this book when it comes out in October. The third book I finished, which was also a galley from NetGalley, is The Topeka School by Ben Lerner. And I'd start off by saying this was a 5-star read. I love this book. I thought it was really well done. If you like Ohio and you don't mind a little bit less like histrionic melodrama that I felt that Ohio had, and a little bit of the overwriting that Ohio had, but you still want the intellectual engagement and you still want to get to know characters very well, then you might like this book. If you don't mind family dramas, if you don't mind books written in 3 perspectives, with a 4th perspective that's kind of tucked in at the ends of chapters, written all in italics, so beware if you don't like italics, then you can read this book and probably get a lot out of it. It's about a family. They're Jewish. They moved to Topeka. The parents are analysts. They're PhDs in psychology. I might not be getting those details exactly right, but that was the effect, is that they go to this institute that is a training institute for other psychiatrists, and it's also a mental health facility, a mental health hospital where they work on helping patients who are afflicted with mental health issues. And so the interesting part about 2 of the characters you hear from are the mother and the father who work at this school, and they're required to always be in analysis themselves. And so if it were just a straight patient-physician relationship where everything was confidential, that would be one thing. But things that happen outside of the analyst's couch are brought into analysis and then used against the patient. And is particularly true for the woman who wants to rise up in the ranks and is constantly in this very patriarchal, male-dominated institute, being told that because she wants to excel and she wants to progress and be promoted, she has penis envy, and so she needs to work on that. So they conveniently use psychology and psychiatric Freudian analysis to keep women from rising up in the ranks. So that's one part of it. There's a lot more to it than this. The son is kind of the protagonist of the book. He's in speech and debate, and the book is also about the limits of speech and language to convey emotion. And there's a lot of internal things going on in his head. I mean, there's so much to this book, and it's also about the rising right-wing ascendancy in the Midwest in the 1990s, kind of leading from where they were then to where we are now in our political discourse. So there is a ton inside this book, and I hope that some people will read it and like it. It's definitely a Marmite book. I think you'll either love it or hate it. I really loved it. I'd be interested in seeing, if anyone reads it and wants to talk about it. So. I was in the middle of taping yesterday and I got distracted. I got pulled away from what I was doing and I never ended up coming back to finish. I have two things I want to do before I wrap this video up, and so now it's no longer a Friday Reads, it's a Recent Reads, because I didn't get it together yesterday to get this finished. I just wanted to quickly talk about pricing on books and Britta's brilliant rundown of the finances of big publishing and how all the finances break down. I wanted to add in that publishers do have to take returns. So if they print too many books and they're ordered by retailers, if they don't sell, most likely they're going to have to be returned, and then you have to reimburse the bookseller. And that is a big expense, and it's something that makes it very difficult when you are counting on giving a royalty out to an author on a sale to a bookstore, and then you have to, give that money back. So, and I'm just talking from experience, mostly from working in an extremely small press. But we were dealing with, an incredibly small budget. So even if you're a nonprofit, and which we weren't, but if you are a nonprofit, university press, I saw some conversation about that. They don't have an unlimited budget. It's not that they can just put millions of dollars into books that will not sell enough to get a return back on at least the printing and on the personnel costs of putting that book together. So my take on it is that I spread my book buying dollars around. I do my best to, sometimes I do buy from Amazon, I admit it, and especially if they have like a daily deal, and I do kind of stock up every once in a while on some very cheap ebooks that have been out for a long time. But I also will often buy a second format of a book that I liked a lot. And I also give a lot of books away as gifts. And I also go to an independent bookstore and buy the hardback, even though I'm not really a fan of reading the hardbacks right now. But I still do want to support libraries, independent bookstores, and I want to make sure that authors and the publishers, like assistants and marketing people and all the people that are involved in bringing a book from its manuscript form into a finished book, can have a living wage and have benefits and be taken care of in an industry that we all love and we all want to support. So I would, publishers aren't necessarily being greedy when they charge $9.99 for an ebook. There is a lot going into that, and it's not a charity. It's not a charity. So, and I'm saying this as a person who has basically never really been paid for the work that I have done, except for if I'm freelancing for and I just get a flat fee for the work that I do, but there is not a lot of money in publishing, so please just keep it in mind. Everyone's working as hard as they can to bring these like exquisite gems of books to life so that we all have something to talk about on the internet. So that's my 2 cents. I can't tell anyone else what to do, but that's what I choose to do. And the last thing I wanted to quickly do is tell you that when we were on our road trip, we listened to 3 podcasts and they all fit together. And if you want to see the progression of the country democracy starting to crumble, starting with Spiro Agnew, there is Rachel Maddow did a podcast called Bagman that was all about the rise and fall of Spiro Agnew, which I really knew nothing about other than just I knew he was the vice president and he had to leave for some reason, which I thought was probably related to Watergate, and it wasn't. And then we listened to it's called Slow Burn, which was the first season was about Watergate and what it was like to be a reporter and what it was like to watch all that unfold without any idea of how it would end up, and that was really interesting. And then the second season of that was the Clinton-Lewinsky scandal and all the conspiracy theories that were surrounding the Clintons at the time, and how like Newt Gingrich got in there and, you know, put his finger in the pot and stirred it. It was so, anyway, it's just mind-blowing to hear some of the characters that were in these 3 podcasts that, you know, still had an effect on the people who are running things today. So really interesting history lesson if you like that kind of podcast. And so now I see that I've been talking for a long time. I'm going to wrap this up and get to editing, and hopefully I will see you all soon. I'm reading, and I know you are too. So I'll talk to you later. Bye.